Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, October 12th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Tribbles. Yes, exclusive. Democratic congressional candidate Amar Campanajar is apologizing for appearing on video with a far-right group. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says the 50th district candidate is also walking back some of the things he said in that video, including that he wasn't sold on who should be president.
I don't care who wins. I'm going to work with whoever.
I want Trump to win, absolutely 100%.
And my vote's still open. You guys think I'm going to vote for Biden necessarily. I still want to see how they perform in the debates.
Recently, Democrat Amar Campanajar sat down with Justin Haskins of Defendi's County.
I don't think anybody would argue or disagree or challenge the fact that I'm about as far-right conservative as they come.
There was no social distancing or mask wearing.
I want people to know that I'm not the only one smoking a cigar, right?
Yeah. So
yeah, and we're having some whiskey and just keeping it casual.
Defendi's County is about 20,000 strong on Facebook and has recently come under fire after some members made threats of violence against Black Lives Matter protesters. But Campanajar said he didn't know that. He told KPBS he talked to the group to dispel rumors about his heritage.
I'm not a terrorist.
Are you a Muslim?
No, I'm a Christian.
Now Campanajar is apologizing.
Despite my best intentions, I messed up. I messed up bad. And I should have been stronger.
In a video posted to his campaign Facebook page, Campanajar says he takes full responsibility.
I reject all forms of racism, and I will assure you that I will never again engage any group that tries to threaten the lives of our people.
Haskins told KPBS he too has disavowed white supremacy and those who have threatened violence on his page. During last week's hour-long conversation, the pair touched on a number of controversial topics, including Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett.
The fact that the Democrats want the president to hold off until after the election, it's within his constitutional right. You know, he's president for 4 years, not 3. That's just the truth. I'd want to consider and then confirm her if I thought she had the qualifications based on her confirmation. It seems like she's very qualified, so I probably would.
Campanajar also promised to again investigate former President Barack Obama and former candidate Hillary Clinton.
If there was something bad, we got to make sure that we hold them accountable. If not, can we put it to bed?
Now Campanajar is walking back those comments, saying the Clintons and Obamas shouldn't go to jail and everything in the past about them investigating Trump has been debunked. He also said there was a 99% chance that he was voting for Joe Biden, who, by the way, has endorsed him. After questions from KPBS about this, Campanajar announced today that he has now, in fact, voted for the Democratic nominee.
I would support strong border policy, which means wall, but not just wall. Infrastructure, which is wall, personnel, because you need people there, border patrol, and you need state-of-the-art technology.
Campanajar did reiterate his support for Trump's border wall where needed, and he also again questioned Trump's impeachment by House Democrats.
I don't have a lot of friends in the establishment right now. They're pretty pissed off at me. They're leaving me out to dry. That's why I'm coming to talk to you.
The chairman of the San Diego County Democratic Party says Campanajar's comments are disappointing and some of his views are not in line with the party. Now voters in the 50th will have to decide for themselves.
My exact words to Amar were that, I would not support him, I would not endorse him, but I would allow him to be on the page just as I would any candidate or politician.
Campanajar's Republican rival, Darrell Issa, also met with the group last week and, among other things, said Black Lives Matter encourages violence and thanked Defendi's County for being out in the community.
You guys were pretty important as law and order was breaking down, so it was hard to miss you.
Issa's campaign did not make him available for comment about his appearance with the group. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom says cases of COVID-19 are trending downward in California. Today, San Diego County confirmed 195 new coronavirus cases. No additional deaths were reported, although 5 deaths were announced over the weekend. The governor also announced the state now has over 10,000 contact tracing staff members to help keep transmissions low.
Now we're averaging over 125,000 daily tests. Over this weekend, we were averaging a little north of 150,000 tests.
Tomorrow, the state will evaluate county case rates, which determine the level of restrictions we are allowed to operate under. San Diego County is currently in the red Tier 2. A protest locally on both sides of the border today. It took place at a federal appeals court ruled the Trump administration illegally redirected defense spending to pay for border wall construction in San Diego County. Here's KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler.
The groups met at the port of entry in Tecate to mark Indigenous Peoples Day, which has been supplanting the Columbus Day holiday in many parts of the country.
This land is Kumeyaay land. They have tried to separate us.
For months, members of the Kumeyaay Nation have tried to stop the hasty construction of the border wall. They say that the federal government has not followed the law in consulting with them, and in doing so is destroying their cultural heritage sites.
These borders that are trying to keep us away from our own family, our own friends, our own relatives, these are put up. They do not work. They will never work. It is a waste of time, a waste of money.
On Friday, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ordered a stop to the ongoing construction. In response to a lawsuit filed by the Sierra Club and joined by the state of California, among others, the Ninth Circuit said the Trump administration had misappropriated $3.6 billion in military spending to go towards the border wall. But the ruling hasn't stopped construction. KPBS saw construction equipment continue to work on the wall, just east of Tecate where the Kumeyaay were protesting. On Monday afternoon, a Customs and Border Protection spokesperson told KPBS that despite the court's injunction ordering an immediate stop, that construction continues on the border wall. Brooke Baines is an organizer with the group SHIELD, which put together today's protest, which featured singing from Native peoples on both sides of the border.
It saddens our heart that we can't just easily come together, that there is this border wall and all these border patrol that come and interfere in between us when we try to do things together.
She says that on Indigenous Peoples Day, it's important to raise awareness of the people who were here before borders.
The Kumeyaay people and the people of this land in general, we go unnoticed a lot, and especially on the other side, they go unnoticed.
The Kumeyaay currently have 2 separate lawsuits against the border wall, winding their way through the courts. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
A small number of in-person classes resumed today at San Diego State University. All coursework moved online after COVID-19 case numbers spiked as school started in August. The infection is slowing down. Students in select lab and clinical courses returned to class. One student still too.
I think it might be ideal to hold off a little bit longer than that, because if the cases are in fact going down, I think it might be in their best interest to just hold off on all the in-person activities a little bit longer.
There have been over 1,200 COVID-19 cases since the school year began. Students taking in-person classes must be tested at least once every 14 days. Faculty will check before they enter the classroom. And it was back to campus today for more students in the Poway Unified School District. 16 more elementary schools welcomed children back for in-class learning. A handful of others opened a week ago. Parents will still have the option of virtual learning. A decision on when to reopen middle and high schools has yet to be made. The Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett kicked off today, and protesters marched in the street and were met by supporters of the judge. The Senate to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg Americans weeks before Election Day. Steve Nannis has highlights from day one.
The committee vote may be all but certain.
Unless something really dramatic happens, all Republicans will vote yes and all Democrats will vote no.
But the political stakes on Capitol Hill this week couldn't be greater as senators hear directly from President Donald Trump's Supreme Court pick, Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
If confirmed, it would be the honor of a lifetime to serve alongside the Chief Justice and 7 Associate Justices.
The controversial nomination hearing kicking off just 22 days before the election and in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic. Democrats have argued unsuccessfully the committee should wait.
I believe we should not be moving forward on this nomination.
But Republicans have pressed on, and now Barrett's in the spotlight, with Democrats focusing on the president's efforts to end Obamacare.
He wants his Supreme Court and this nominee to join him in eliminating the Affordable Care Act.
And Republicans touting Barrett's qualifications.
Judge Barrett brings impeccable credentials, a judicial temperament, and a faithfulness to the law.
Tuesday and Wednesday, we will see questions directly from the senators in what will likely include some of the most contentious moments.
I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and laws as they are written. And I believe I can serve my country by playing that role.
In Washington, Steve Nannis, KPBS News.
A new proposal to tackle homelessness in San Diego will be presented to City Council tomorrow. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne gives us the details on the plan to get people into permanent housing.
Operation Shelter to Home has been operating out of the San Diego Convention Center since the beginning of the pandemic in March. The shelter offers a safe and sanitary space, reducing COVID-19 transmissions within the homeless population in San Diego. Now, program managers are ready to take this project to the next step by purchasing hotels to serve as permanent housing for individuals phasing out of the shelter. Mayor Kevin Faulkner and program leaders were present at today's press conference, urging City Council to approve the purchase of the hotels.
And by converting these hotels into housing and continuing to navigate folks into other housing, our region will continue to lead the state on solutions to reduce homelessness.
The fully furnished and equipped hotel rooms will offer individuals a permanent housing opportunity where they can continue getting on-site specialized care, resulting in long-term stability.
And these properties will pave the way for over 400 additional folks who have been stabilized through Operation Shelter to Home to get a place of their own.
Mayor Faulkner says Operation Shelter to Home has already seen double the success rates of the traditional bridge programs. If the purchase is approved, the hotels are expected to be open as permanent housing by December. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The race for supervisor in the 3rd District could change the political balance of the county board. Incumbent Republican Kristen Gaspar faces Democrat Tara Lawson-Remer. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh updates the race.
The world changed dramatically after the March 3rd primary. Right after the two candidates were chosen for the general election, COVID-19 thrust the county health system into the spotlight. At times, incumbent Kristen Gaspar has been at odds with the county. Still very early on in the pandemic, in June, Gaspar was publicly calling for the county to loosen restrictions on backyard gatherings.
It is really easy to look back at any point in time during this pandemic response and point to, okay, well, in this month, we may have felt a different way, but we've learned a lot.
She's still pushing for San Diego County to make its own reopening plan as the virus continues to spread.
We need our local control back from the governor. California is a large, diverse state, and the thought that we can treat every county exactly the same way with this peanut butter approach is the wrong one.
Gaspar says she suspended her campaign during the summer to concentrate on the COVID-19 response. She says that's one reason why, even as an incumbent, she's trailing her challenger, Tara Lawson-Remer, in fundraising. Early on, Lawson-Remer, who is an attorney and college professor at UCSD, says she repurposed her phone bank so they could perform wellness checks for seniors in the district. Lawson-Remer is also critical of the county's response, but for a different reason. Not having enough staff on hand to handle the pandemic, even after a hepatitis A outbreak 2 years ago.
They just didn't have the resources. There had been an underinvestment in staff for so long that they just were not able to keep up with the demand, and they just did an extraordinary job with the limited resources they had. So that frankly fundamentally falls on the prior leadership.
Aside from potentially turning the Board of Supervisors from red to blue, the 3rd District is likely to tip the balance of power on the regional planning agency Sandag, where Gaspar now has a seat. Sandag is creating a 30-year plan which concentrates on mass transit and moves away from road widening projects. Gaspar wants those road projects.
How much more are we willing to dedicate solely into mass transit while continuing to ignore the rest? How about we start looking at a balanced way to make those investments?
The county's climate change plan has ended up in court. Lawson Remer is running on replacing it with what she calls the gold standard of climate change plans. But she hasn't taken a position on Sandag's plan.
The first thing you have to do is a feasibility study. You know, how is this going to impact how we live and work? Is it really going to bring the solutions that we need to our community? And then as well as an economic study, you know, what's going to be the impact economically in terms of job creation.
In the latest campaign finance report, Lawson Remer brought in an extra $162,000 more than Gaspar. Actors Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin recently held a virtual fundraiser for her. Lawson Remer says Fonda is supporting candidates who take a strong stance to stop climate change. During the recent debate, Gaspar criticized the amount of money coming in from the Service Employees International Union Local 221, saying the union is trying to take over the Board of Supervisors.
This is not the time to siphon precious tax dollars over to labor union bosses.
Lawson Remer says she's proud of her union support. Instead, Lawson Remer continues to hammer away at Gaspar's support of the Trump administration, including trips to the White House.
My opponent has been a strong supporter of Donald Trump since day number one, was one of his earliest endorsers.
The district runs up the coast from Solana Beach to Encinitas and up the 15 from the 8 to Escondido. Once reliably Republican, it now has more registered Democrats. The 3rd district is the best hope for Republicans to hold a 3-2 majority on the County Board of Supervisors after a 2nd seat went to Democrats in the primary. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Though the San Diego City Council is officially nonpartisan, only 2 out of the 5 open seats feature races between a Republican and a Democrat. KPBS reporter John Carroll spoke with the 2 Democrats facing off in District 1.
San Diego City Council District 1 covers a lot of coastline, from La Jolla up to the border with Del Mar. Among the neighborhoods it serves are Carmel Valley, Sorrento Valley, University City, and UCSD. The seat has been held by both Democrats and Republicans over the years, but recently it's tilted toward the Democrats. It's currently held by Democrat Barbara Bree, who's running for mayor of San Diego. Democrats Joe LaCava and Will Moore are running to replace Bree. LaCava is a civil engineer and Moore is a lawyer. Both of them place fighting homelessness high on their list of priorities.
We need to take a look at the incredibly complex financial mechanisms to build income-restricted housing and how that adds to the cost. We have to look at the red tape to deliver housing at that point. And how we can streamline that.
But LaCava also says the time for just studying and talking about the problem has passed. He says the city needs to change the way it approves housing.
It has much more to do to reduce processing time, permit fees, and reduce the risk of producing that.
We've had a regime in this town for the last 30 years that has been, frankly, affirmatively against building housing. Unnecessary hurdles, over-regulation.
Will Moore also points to the city's permitting process as a major impediment to building affordable housing.
We have processes where even the permitting, when you are doing something that is allowed, takes 3 to 10 years. Now, if you get a piece of property and you park it for 3 to 10 years where you can't do anything because even if everybody wants the housing, it takes almost a decade to get, a 5-unit apartment complex built in there.
Moore says homelessness and affordable housing are just 2 examples of how San Diego government has spent too many years being reactive rather than proactive.
So you need to be aiming at 2, 3, 5 years ahead to where the problem's going to be and have that foresight. That's the way I've run my campaign. I've talked about during this campaign climate, housing, jobs, from the perspective of where San Diego is going to be after maybe some of us aren't even here anymore.
San Diego will be electing 5 new city council members along with a new mayor in November. Joe LaCava says that presents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the city to change the way it does business.
Having elected officials that are willing to say, this is not about me. This is about my city. This is about the San Diegans who live and have businesses here.
Another issue that divides District 1 is short-term vacation rentals. A proposal to cap the number of Airbnb-style rentals was rejected by the Planning Commission on October 8th. That means it will be left up to the new city council to decide. Moore says the proposal was a good one. LaCava disagrees.
I think what we should be doing, instead of just waving a flag to have a rhetorical point, is trying to work towards a solution that actually reduces the impact of STVRs on our community. And that practical solution is what I'm after.
Let's adopt regulations for home sharing, and let's keep whole home rentals in our commercial districts.
LaCava came in first in the District 1 primary, beating Moore by more than 3,000 votes. But there were more than 25,000 votes split between the other candidates. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A reminder to check out our KPBS Voter Guide. The online resource is customizable to the races on your ballot, and you can find the link on our homepage at kpbs.org. A return of unseasonably hot temperatures and strong winds to California. Governor Newsom says the state has already had one of the worst fire seasons on record.
Some 4.1 million acres now burned in the state of California. We're currently dealing with 14 major wildfires and/or wildfire complexes.
31 people have died and roughly 9,300 structures destroyed. We're also experiencing heightened fire risk here in San Diego County. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Well, the heat's back. It looks like it's going to stick around all week long. It's going to be a hot week here. The air is dry. We have low relative humidities and some gusty winds at times. And that will lead to an enhanced wildfire risk. And with the heat advisories are being issued. These will be in effect right through Friday. So that just tells us it's going to be a hot week. And temperatures could eventually rival records in the deserts. Now, as we take a look at our temperatures tonight, we'll be in the lower 50s Oceanside. San Diego, 66. Ramona's at 54, and Mount Laguna's at 53. And for tomorrow, well, we'll see above average temperatures here. Gentle breezes are in the offing, but the temperatures will be climbing. 87 in Oceanside, 89 San Diego. El Cajon, 101. Ramona, 99. Escondido, 97. And remember, our average highs this time of year in the lower 80s, so we're way above average. Borrego Springs, 103, and Campos into the mid-90s. So as we take a look at the week, it is going to be hot, very warm here. Stays dry, low relative humidity, some gusty winds at times, that high fire risk. So here's our forecast. Coast, lots of sunshine, very warm. Warmth continues right through the end of the week. As we take you to the inland areas, it's hot. Temperatures upper 90s, close to 100 degrees with sunshine. And as you take you up to the mountains, it's warm here too. Look at those temperatures, mid-upper 70s. And as we check out the deserts, it's really hot. And the temperatures could be close to record high temperatures from Wednesday right into Saturday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the U.S. Senate opens proceedings for President Trump's third Supreme Court nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego scientists have discovered that calorie-restricted diets could be successful for an unexpected reason: a reduction in body temperature. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chetlani explains.
Most of us have tried dieting, whether that's after a large Thanksgiving dinner or to achieve a summer beach body. Calorie restriction is something most of us are familiar with. But scientists have found that calorie restriction, the right way, meaning recommended by a physician, can have life-prolonging benefits by delaying age-related diseases like cancer. Scripps biologist Bruno Conti says that's because calorie restriction also causes a reduction in body temperature.
This is probably an adaptive mechanism that evolved because when there's not much food around, one thing to do is to save energy. And you have to consider that a lot of energy, up to 50%, is actually used to maintain a constant high body temperature.
Conti decided to study different groups of calorie-restricted mice in different temperatures to see just how much this reduction in body temperature mattered. And it turns out it could yield most of the benefits of dieting.
But it also contributes to its beneficial effect. In other words, we were able to modify mice genetically So they had a reduction of their body temperature, and even if they ate the same amount of food of animals that had a normal body temperature, they did have beneficial effect.
Conti looked at two groups of calorie-restricted mice. One group was placed in a normal temperature, the other group in another environment, somewhat hotter, where the mice couldn't experience a reduction in body temperature.
We found out that actually up to 70%, depending on which tissue you look at, between 40 and 70% of the changes that occur during calorie restrictions are actually due not to the reduction of nutrients, but to the reduction of temperature itself.
Conti suggests scientists could produce a drug that could mimic the effects of reduced temperature in the body to get the same effects as dieting.
It might be possible, to devise a way to enjoy the beneficial effects of calorie restriction without having to eat less.
Conti warns that no one should try to reduce their body temperature themselves.
At home, I would not recommend anyone to try to reduce body temperature, because even this, if it is not done properly, can be lethal, can be detrimental.
He also says no one should try a calorie-restricted diet without consulting their physician. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.